In the upcoming video, there's a mistake. This number here is recorded as 24.7, but the actual correct size is 21.7. So do not use this. Use this. 21.7. I hope you can remember this. If you don't, your drawing won't work. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. So remember, replace 24.7 with 21.7. Good luck with the tutorial. Right, here we go with our Desktop Organiser tutorial. Here's a photo of the finished organiser. You can see it's got a solid base and then it's got 4 sides on it. Each of the 4 sides is identical. They've got tabs in the corners here that help hold it together. Here's another photo of the organiser there. And here's a little drawing that shows how it all goes together. So you can see the length of the sides is 65 millimeters. It's a square base, so 65 by 65, and then the total height is 110. These tabs here, there's 2 on this side and then 3 on this side. You'll see that these gaps here will interlock eventually with these tabs here. The dimensions for this are important, and we'll go through that more closely soon. To start with, you need to go to your class folder. So if we have a look in this class folder here, you'll be able to scan down and find AA template, DC metric 1718-002. That one you need to 2-finger click on and download. Now if we take a look here, here it is, it's come up on our download, and again we're going to 2-finger click and go open with AutoCAD 2015. Now I've already got mine open, so I'm going to scan over to that now. Here we go. So when it opens up, it'll look like this. The first thing we need to do is save it under a name. So let's save this on our desktop. It needs to be a drawing, and give it your name. Oh, I'm still in capitals. This is my 4th attempt. Now before we start drawing, let's just get a few of these settings correct. We're going to turn our grid on, and here we're going to 2-finger click on Object Snap, and we're going to turn a lot of these off. We're going to turn Center off, and Node, and Intersection, Extension, Insertion. And so to start with, the only setting that we need on there is the midpoint. And let's leave the endpoint on because I think we're going to need that later. So that's what your menu there should look like, and you can tick that. So just check that your display looks the same as mine. You've got the grid on, you've got the ortho mode on, Object Snap, and you've got this dynamic import on. I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle for the base, RECT, click enter, and to specify the first corner we're going to go 0, 0, 0. That's going to lock down in that corner. Now it's a square, so it's 65, 65, and that's the size of our base. I'm just going to zoom into that. Now, you can see over here on our drawing that these are the spacings between the tabs, and like I said, these spacings are really important. You'll notice on this side they're 22, but on this side they're slightly different. I'll explain that to you. Over here this is 22, but we want it to tightly interlock with this tab here, so we've made this tab 0.2 smaller. So 22, taking 0.2 off that side, 0.2 off that side, take away 22, take away 0.4 is 21.6. So when we go through this, you'll need to make sure you get that exactly right. This is a little bit later. But before we get to that, I just want to draw your attention to this. The thickness of these tabs is 3.0 millimeters or 4.8 millimeters. Now for this worked example, I'm going to use 3. But if you'd like the thickness of your Desktop Organiser to be a bit more, you can choose 4.8. So if you do choose to go for 4.8, every time you hear me say 3 from now on, just flick that in your brain and say he's actually saying 4.8. but for the worked example, we're going to do 3. So back to our drawing, we're going to click down on here and we need to offset this. So OFF, offset, and we're going to specify the distance as 3, and then it's going to click down and enter to lock it in place. Now we're going to draw some lines. So I'm going to draw from here to here. See how it's clicking on the midpoint? Because we set that up a little bit earlier. Line, alpha line, press enter. Oh, sorry about that. And across there. Now we need to offset these lines again. So back to our offset menu. And we're going to go 11 millimeters. There. 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 And there. So that's all we need. Now we need to just go through and do some trimming. So we type trim, and then we highlight the whole thing. You might have forgotten how to highlight. Remember, if you click and drag, you're going to get a silly shape like that. If you want to get a rectangle or a square, you click, let go, and then drag, and then click again. So that's what we want to trim. Press enter. And now we're going to come through here and select all the bits we want to trim out. This is a bit of a tedious task. Oh dear, I've already done some wrong. Let's go back. And now just going to press escape, and then I'm going to click over these lines. Now notice we haven't got our mouse pose on. Let's just turn this on. You'll be able to see what's going on a little bit better. Should be working. Okay. I'm going to delete. Just click on. Sorry, press escape. Click on those lines. Press delete. There we go. So that's the base. How about we go Command S to save that now? We're just going to click on the grid for a minute. And we're going to draw our rectangle, the same as this one over here. So RECT again for rectangle. Snap it down there. The size of this is 65,110. Let's zoom into that a bit. Again, we're using the offset tool to start with. I'm going to offset 3 millimeters. Right, and now we're going to come around and draw the lines all the way around the edge of the object. So to do this, we're going to come back here and I'm just going to turn off this midpoint setting. And just to make things a little bit, we'll start in this corner with our line. So we're going for the alpha line. And you're going to be able to see that I'm using these measurements over here. Okay, so just be aware of these measurements. You also see them coming up on screen as we work through it. So, alpha line. I'm going to start here. I'm going to drag down 22.2. Then, we'll just turn the snap off. And I'm going to come across 3, down 21.6, across 3, down 22.4, across 3, Oh, okay, one of them hasn't worked back up there. Let's undo that. So there, that's right, across 3, down 22.4, across 3, down 21.6, across 3, down, and this, if we've done this right, it'll lock in that corner at 22.2. That looks to be right. Then we're coming across 24.7 and up 3, across 21.6, down 3. Now there, let's go down 3 properly, and yes, and then we come across 18.7 and up 22 and across 3 and up 22. Bit monotonous, but it's important we get this set up exactly right. Otherwise, when you come to the end of it needed to be across 3, up 22, across 3, and up 22. And if we zoom right in there, you can see that it's locked in perfectly into that corner. So I must have got all my measurements right. Before we go any further, we're going to take this line here and we're going to offset again. And we're going to offset 5 millimeters. So now we can do some trimming to get this drawing ready. So that's all done. We'll just type trim again, select the whole object, press enter, and then we need to come up in here and trim all these out. Come here. Great, that's worked really well. There's a little bit down here to tidy up. Should be able to press escape and just, there we go, just press delete on him. No, have to trim. Right, so hopefully yours looks just like mine. Now I'm going to give you a few different, let's save it there actually. Before we go any further, I'm going to give you a couple of different options for how you might do the pattern on your Desktop Organiser. The first one is like the sample I showed you with the zigzag lines, but I'll also probably show you a couple more alternatives. But let's use that as our base, so as our sort of template. So we'll highlight all that and copy it. And then I'm clicking on that so that I can paste it, and I'll just snap it in there. Can you see now how perfectly those are going to line up and lock into place? Drawing's looking really good. Right, so just let's paste it a few times, because like I said, I'm going to give you a few different ways of doing this. Just leave that first one, we won't draw on that, we'll keep that as our master. Methods to draw a design or a pattern on your sides. The first one we're going to go with is the zigzag, like the example that I showed you earlier. So for that we need to use the command multi-line, which is ml, mline. Now, rather than specify start point, we need to make sure we've got the right settings. So we're going to click the down arrow, and we're going to scroll down here to style. Now, at this time, we don't know the style name, so we're using the down arrow to question. And it's going to come up with this list here where it's given us two options. The option we want to use down here is the ESF DC X2 by 5. So we just have to type that in. press enter. Now we can close this command line. Now at this point I'm going to turn all of this off so nothing's snapping, and turn this one off too. And this is just completely random. You just kind of go a bit crazy with this. I find that if you do that, if you squeeze them up too much, it doesn't really work very well. So try and keep them a little bit more widely spaced than that. That'll do. Now, let's explode all that so that at the moment, if you see how they're all joined together, we should be able to explode those lines so that they're all separated. So that's explode, and we're going to select all of that, press enter. Now, and enter again, all, layer, flyweight. Just keep pressing enter on that. Now see how these are all separate, they're not joined together. So now we can go through with our trim tool. Trim, select the whole thing. And to start with, press enter. We're going to come around, and every time a shape overlaps this rectangle, we're going to trim it out. You're going to be experts at using the trim tool by the time you finish this. Then all the shapes outside the box we're going to trim. Well, that's a bit tricky through there, isn't it? These little bits here, we'll come back and get them later. I'm guessing that these ones here come out as well. See down here where we've got a lot clashing together, that's actually a little bit hard to resolve, but it's alright, we'll come back and solve it later. So go right around the outside, trim all these out. The order that you do this is quite important because otherwise your drawing's not going to work that well. Then you want to trim out all overlapping pieces, so you want to take out Can you see how that's worked? Because this bit's all connected together, this is all going to stay. This bit will be a hollow, these tiny little triangles will be hollows, this triangle will be a hollow as well. And at the moment we need to just keep trimming like this. And you're just basically chasing all these shapes around. See how these bits are going to connect back to the sides. This big triangle will be a hollow. Some of these bits we'll have to come back and get later. You can see how complicated it was in there to sort of work that all out. So like I said, if you can avoid them overlapping so much, that's a good idea. That looks pretty good. You can trace all these lines through and you can see that they're all going to stay together. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to press escape and then we'll just come back with the delete button to get some of these. I find if you click on this and then you move away, it's easier to delete. If you click on it and then that becomes orange and you press delete, it doesn't work. So just move your scroll away and then press delete. Scroll away and then press delete. Looks like we need to come back and just trim a little bit out of there. No, there's not some. That bit. These two pieces here can go. Oh look, there's one trim up there that we missed as well. Okay, so that's our first sort of way of decorating the side of our box. The next one I wanted to show you is a circle method. So I'm just using circle. I'm making sure that none of these snaps are turned on because we want to freestyle these circles completely. Now, you can see I'm pushing the up arrow and that brings back the circle menu, so I can just draw these circles everywhere. I'm really just going to cover the whole surface with lots of circles. Now I find it quite nice that this works quite nicely if you've got slightly asymmetric circles. So see how they're not sitting in the middle of each other perfectly, they're a little bit offset. This is going to create a cool effect later. Just put one little one up in that top corner. That's not where I want it. Right, and again, it's just a trim tool to tidy it up. So same method as before, go around and get all the intersections. And then once you've done that, get all the areas outside the line. And then you're just looking at the overlaps between the objects. Something's not quite right in here. I'm sure I'll work that out later.
Wasn't anything important?
Right, so now we need to go through and delete these out. See, there's something up here that we'll need to get back to anyway. Okay, that's worked all right. I guess this big circle here has really been too big, and it's dominated the drawing a little bit. Let's just try and break things up a little bit more with a couple more circles here. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if that's any better, but that's another technique that you can use. And then I'm going to give you the last technique now. So for this last technique, you can just create any sort of drawing. You know, you might want to do a star or a heart or some sort of logo. For this one, I'm just going to do, let's have a look at what our options are. Let's do polygons. We'll do a pentagon. The center of the pentagon described in circle. And let's just put it in there like that. And then we're going to array that. In fact, let's move that one first. Move. Zoom right in here. Move that up so that's touching the edge there. And then we're going to array it. So we're going to type array. I'm going to select this. Press enter. A rectangular array. Let's drag these down this way. That many, and then we can change the spacing between these so that excuse me, right. That'll do. And then we'll change the spacing between these. Center. And then you can just delete that out. So there's 3 different strategies for putting patterns on the outside of your box. Now, what would make it really helpful for Mr. Mike and your teacher would be is once you've got to this stage, you've got all 4 sides drawn out. Now maybe you'll have 4 sides that are identical, so you'll take this side and you'll copy and paste it 4 times, or you might have 4 individual sides that are all different. If you've got enough time to do that, that's your choice. But if you can take it from there and then move it, turn our snap back on. So we're going to grab that. I'm just going to turn our grid back on. Move that to there. And then move this. We're just going to put them all in a nice vertical line like this. Leave a little bit of a gap between them. And we'll just make 2 copies of that so that we've got 4 sides. Command C, Command V, and then bung that one up there. Now, that way, it's going to be much easier for us to print it on a single piece of wood, and it'll come out nicely. And we can take the next student and we can nest it beside it. It's going to be a much more efficient use of materials. It's faster to cut, and it's less wasteful for the environment as well. So that's so once you're finished, get it all set up like that for your teacher. That'd be fantastic. Now notice, just hovering over here, these circles or these pentagons are all still grouped together. We need to break them apart. So we're going to use that the explode tool again. This time I'm going to type it properly, EXPLODE, explode that way. And we're going to select this like this, and then press enter. Now when we hover over them, they're all individually exploded. Now the last thing to do, I'm going to delete him out and save this. And as I save it, I'm going to save it as a DXF, the top one here, 2013 DXF. I'm going to save that on the desktop. After I've saved it on the desktop, I'm going to drag it back into my class folder that we used at the start to get the template from. So I'll save that there. And that's the end of the drawing, the end of the tutorial. I hope this has been useful for you.